What blockchain should I deploy my crypto project on? What blockchain should I build my crypto project on? What blockchain, what blockchain, what blockchain? As a crypto growth hacker operating this market for almost 4 years, I've been asked this question dozens of times, and for good reason. It's such an important decision to make. So I wanted to create this video. What I'm going to do here is just list all of the different things that you have to consider when making this decision. So if you are building a project in crypto right now and you're a bit confused or you haven't decided yet on what blockchain you should build on, take these points in, because this is going to give you a lot more to think about so that you can make the right decision. It's super important to make the right decision because this is going to be the home for your project, and projects can change blockchain. They can redeploy a token on another blockchain. However, this is not favorable. You want to get this part right from the beginning and only change it if you literally have to. So stick with me on this video. I'm going to go through these points and hopefully it gives you the thought process that you needed to come around to make that decision on what blockchain to build on. And if you're not building a project and you're watching this video, still stick around. There's going to be loads of value for you as well, because it's going to help you understand the current blockchain landscape, which will enable you to understand what blockchain might be the next Ethereum or the next Solana or whatever it might be. So still a lot of value in this. Let's get into it. And just before we do, quick introduction. If you're new around here, I am Jake on Block. I am a growth hacker in crypto. I've helped over 20 projects launch and grow in this space, combined market caps over $1 billion. Best-selling author on crypto growth and also a member of the Forbes Business Council. So enough about me. Let's get into the points. Number one, how big is the blockchain's ecosystem? What I mean by this is how many people already love that blockchain and are a part of the community of that blockchain that potentially could become a part of your community. This is a really, really important point, because in terms of your go-to-market, in terms of getting over the cold start problem, if you're working with a blockchain that has a really loyal community and supports new projects coming on the chain, then you have a great chance to get a load of early token holders through the door, build a really solid community from the beginning of people that want to see you win because you're building on that chain. And point number two is, which goes in conjunction with the first point, how noisy is that blockchain? So essentially, if you're building on a blockchain that might have a massive use case, let's say Solana, for example, it's going to still be a struggle to stand out. Now, they have great accessibility because there's loads of people already using the infrastructure that Solana provides to function the network. However, it's a very noisy space. There's thousands of projects launching every single day, so you might struggle to stand out. And if you're doing something a little bit more niche, you might want to choose an upcoming blockchain with a much smaller, less noisy ecosystem so you can become the number one project on that chain. Number three, kind of touched on it there, accessibility. How good is the infrastructure of that blockchain? What you do not want to do is build on a blockchain that is very hard for people to use and function. Imagine if you're building on a blockchain that doesn't have even simple infrastructure right now, such as a decentralized exchange or a way to trade the token. Now, this is part of the blockchain's journey, right? In terms of building their way up to be something. So there are many great blockchains that have done amazing things in the space that don't have some of these key parts of infrastructure right now, but they will in the future, or they're working on it. So there is no discredit to them whatsoever. It's a journey. However, you have to think about your side. Where are you gonna, how accessible is your token or your protocol going to be based on the infrastructure that that chain actually has in place for potential users of whatever it is that you're building? Point number four, liquidity. So again, for some projects that maybe aren't launching a token, they're just building using tech, this doesn't really apply too much. But if you are planning on launching a token, you need to make sure that there is liquidity on the chain that you're deploying on, because it's much easier if you go and launch on, say, Solana, right? There's a lot of people that have Sol that are already active users on Solana that can come in and easily buy your token. There's a lot of liquidity already on Solana. Whereas if you're working with a pretty new chain that doesn't have that liquidity yet, then you're going to have to draw people onto the chain, potentially into the native token of that chain to make transactions and then into your project. There is a much kind of thicker process that people have to go through, and there's more friction. So again, this isn't all bad. If you're not deploying a token, you might not need access to liquidity, and therefore this won't be such an important factor. And the next point I'm going to talk about is more of an important factor. And that point, number 5, is the technology. Can you build what you want to build in the most efficient and easy way on the chain that you are choosing? Very, very simple question that you have to ask yourself. And in addition to that, what I would add is probably developers. Now, some languages in crypto are, let's say, less popular, and therefore there's less dev talent out there. So there's more dev talent EVM based than there is, say, UTXO based. So this is something else that you have to weigh up. Now, if you've got a founding team and you're all developers, you're all gonna build that protocol, then this is less of a consideration for you. But if you're more of a, I don't know, like a maverick entrepreneur that doesn't come from, like, you're not the technical founder and you have to hire in people and expand rapidly, then this has to be a consideration. Can you hire the talent that has this skill set? And crypto is still emerging and growing every single day. So there is no kind of set rule that, oh, I'm going to find loads of people. We are still kind of, I'd say, talent dense in crypto. So this has to be a consideration. Point 6, we're going to go something very basic here, which is just transaction speed and cost. So we all know that Ethereum gets very congested and expensive in certain periods. And therefore, if you have a high volume based protocol that you're building, Ethereum might not be essentially the right choice for you because of those congested periods and how slow transactions might be, and also how costly they might be. Again, Cardano has struggled with scalability over the years as well, whereas I've been very impressed with Solana this year because of the amount of volume they've managed to absorb from meme coins and still handle transaction pretty well. Okay, there's been a little few things here and there that have kind of caught Solana out, but generally I'm very, very impressed to handle that volume of new kind of tokens being created every day. That volume of trading as well has been insane to watch. It might not be relevant to you based on what you're building, but a very important point to consider broadly. Next up, I think we're at 7 now, but this would be incentives. So one of the perks of building on a smaller chain, as well as kind of getting that kind of first access to their audience and the support from their crowd, is incentives. So some blockchains may have a grants program. They may offer you funding to go away and build what it is that you want to build. So it's more like a partnership. In addition to that, some of them might offer you, say, marketing support or tech support. And if you're really early stage, you might favor a partnership like that because it's going to help you get off the ground in the first place, because they're going to give you resources that you need to build. If you're a much bigger project and you're not really resource dependent, then you can kind of take this one out of the equation and just focus on what's best for our needs based on all the other points I'm talking about. Whereas if you are like a newer builder coming to market, this is definitely a great consideration to have because they can inject resources into your business. The next point, I think this is point 8 now, is so obvious. I'm going to make it very quick here, but it's security and privacy. You don't want to be building on a chain where they have they're hacked and it affects your protocol, because that's going to be a very stressful time for you. And you may be chucked a real big problem your way, and your users given a real big problem for something that wasn't in your hands. So it's very important, of course, to always consider security and privacy and make sure that you're building on a stable chain. Point number 9 is regulatory compliance. Again, something pretty standard, but you have to consider the position of the chain that you're actually building on. Are they compliant? And therefore, what you're doing on their chain is compliant based on how they're conducting their business. You don't want to be working and building on chains operated by cowboys, because you could be putting your users at risk and also the name of your project. And finally, point 10, future growth of the chain that you're building on. Now, imagine if you picked up on a really up and coming chain and you were building something which was key infrastructure on that chain. Let's take Sui, for example. Imagine if you were building on Sui a year ago and you built the leading DEX on Sui. Now a lot more liquidity is coming to Sui, and Sui is really making a name for itself and they're doing extremely well. But you built the early DEX on Sui. You might have even had support from the Sui Foundation to be able to do that. Now you're living your best life because you took a bet on that chain and it paid off massively. And just simply the growth of that chain has led to the growth of your protocol and your project. So this one is a little bit more techie, and this is the discussion that we often have with clients at Magnet, which is whether the chain they're building on could have a huge part to play in their future growth just based on the efforts of that chain. Again, like the previous point that I was talking about in terms of making sure the business being conducted properly by the chain that you're in bed with, it's also important to know that, they're going to be pushing the chain. And if they push the chain, it's going to benefit you enormously as well. Anyway, that's 10 points. I think that's more than enough for today's video. So if you are still considering what chain to build on and you want an opinion, feel free to drop me a DM on Twitter or X, and I will get back to you. Just send me the details. My name on there is just Jake on Block. So yeah, I'll be more than happy to try and give an opinion and see if it's helpful for you. Right now, I think that a lot of new builders are choosing the likes of Solana and Base, potentially even BNB. Their volumes are up quite heavily right now over the likes of Ethereum, based on transaction speed and cost, and also how active ecosystems are. So yeah, I can't really pick. There's some great emerging ones as well. Like I mentioned in this video, Sui, Ton is another one with, continued efforts towards onboarding the mass markets. Big fan of Ton. And there's a lot of smaller blockchains as well that I'm a big fan of that kind of sit behind those ones. There's lots to choose from. It's a very difficult decision to make, and I would be more than happy to help anyone if you just DM me on Twitter. And one last thing, I'm going to drop a link in the description of this video, which is going to talk to you about more consideration points when launching your project in crypto. Again, I've been hacking growth in this market for 4 years. That's why I set up this channel. I want to try and share the wisdom, and we're on the front line in the trenches every single day, hacking growth for some of the biggest projects in the space. So trying to share the knowledge and be of help to people. So check that video out if it's going to be useful for you. All the best building if you're building. If you're not building and you were watching this video to learn more about considerations when choosing blockchains, then I hope that you found this video useful. If you didn't, sorry for wasting your time. That's all from me today. And if you are building a project, then make sure to check my other content as well. And I'll see you all from the next video.